Well, the Greens have demanded companies who made a profit during the pandemic have to hand back JobKeeper benefits. In an unlikely alliance, Greens leader Adam Bandt has teamed up with exiled Liberal Craig Kelly in this push, which see as much as $1.1 billion recovered from companies, including Tabcorp and others, returned to taxpayers. For more on this, I'm joined by two of the straightest talkers in the business. From Canberra, Labor MP Joel Fitzgibbon. And I tell you, the bloke with a big name, Joel Fitzgibbon, more than most of your colleagues on the front bench. And of course, former Premier Campbell Newman from Brisbane. I'll start with you, Joel. A bit rich from the Greens. How about they start advocating for the return of taxpayer subsidies on renewables and all the other sort of environmental monies before they go after business? Is Labor going to back this move?
I'll start with 2 points, Peter. That's that they make for funny bedfellows. Craig Kelly and the Greens. Who'd have thought? We do live in a crazy world. The other point I'd make is that the Greens would not know the first thing about either the economy or business and the risk our investors and business people take every day, and the same businesses, of course, which kept us alive and well and kept people engaged throughout COVID-19. And I think on this broader question, I mean, I have no idea what the Labor Party is going to do. I haven't heard that discussion taking place, but I think you can't generalise. There'll be different businesses in different circumstances, but it smacks to me a little bit like retrospective action, Peter, and that always makes me nervous.
Campbell, I'm sure you watched closely the result of the weekend in the Upper Hunter in coal country. Queensland's a make or break state at the next federal election. Of course, plenty of coal country in Queensland. Any observations from you?
If I could just quickly comment on the previous issue as well, Peter, it might surprise you. The sentiment that the Greens and Craig Kelly are talking to is, as far as I'm concerned, correct. The trouble, though, as Joel said, is retrospectivity. If the rules had been set up, and I acknowledge it was done in a hurry in the beginning, they wouldn't be getting this sort of windfall gain out of a tax break, which was, a subsidy which was there to protect employees, not protect corporate profits and executive bonuses. But I agree with Joel. In terms of coal and the weekend result, look, I just am gobsmacked that Labor will not get what Joel Fitzgibbon is saying, and it is quite significant for the coalition in Queensland, as it is in the Hunter. If the Labor Party want to win the next election, they've got to listen to Joel Fitzgibbon. They've got to actually be totally unequivocal in their support for our fossil fuel resources. They have to get behind gas. They have to get behind coal. They've got to be totally embracing those blue-collar jobs. Otherwise, they are not going to win. They will not pick up the seats in Queensland, and well, indeed, they could lose ground. It's great for the coalition as long as they keep throwing mud. His colleagues keep throwing mud at Joel. Well, the better for the coalition.
Yeah, well, just on that, your colleague Pat Conroy in the neighbouring seat of Shortland, Joel, says you need to shut up. He's been out hard on you, wanting you targeted, slagging off at you, we're told, all around the place. Now, I mentioned last night that Pat Conroy effectively said there was nothing to see out of the Upper Hunter result. Now, if that's his view, I'm not surprised that the coalition is targeting his seat. I'm not surprised they're targeting yours either. They're not stupid. But I tell you what, you're heading for a train wreck if people don't listen to you, Joel Fitzgibbon.
What that confirms, Peter, is that Pat Conroy always does what he's told to do. He's sent out there to the cameras to criticise me, but I won't be drawn into the game. I'll always play the ball, not the man. And if it's Pat Conroy's assessment that the free fall in Labor's primary vote, like we saw on Saturday, is not much of a threat to him in his Hunter Valley seat, then I wish him the very best, Peter.
Yeah, if you watch Question Time 2, you'll see that Pat Conroy is the clown that gets thrown out, not that smart, gets thrown out pretty often by the Speaker. Not much to, tell the electorate in terms of achievement with that. Let's move to another story. Mining stocks and iron ore futures are down as Communist Party officials in China ramp up their rhetoric on high commodity prices. It follows a report that Beijing is fast-tracking plans to wean itself off Australian resources, in particular iron ore, including through its development of the Simandou mine in Guinea. Campbell Newman, this is a big wake-up call. We can't rely on these high iron ore prices forever and ever and ever. And of course, the budget's got the spending baked in, aged care and NDIS. We've got to have our eyes open to the hard game China's playing, don't we?
I think, just to try and be clinical about it, any commodity or product or service that's priced at some crazy level for the person who's buying it ultimately is extremely vulnerable. And the purchaser of that product or service will look for alternatives. And ultimately, in a global market, you will see prices bid down. And, of course, the Chinese are going to look for alternatives. And, of course, this day was always going to come. And it's a great pity, by the way, that the windfall gains from the revenues from high iron ore prices or extraordinary high iron ore prices haven't been put away in essentially something like a sovereign fund like Norway has with their oil. So, we're not going to have these days forever, and we've got to get ready for that.
Joel?
Yeah, well, you made the point, Peter, that all the budget revenue assumptions are based on high volumes of iron ore exports and, of course, exports at high value. And this does just demonstrate how vulnerable that leaves us. China is not a fully developed market economy. There's no Trade Practices Act there, Peter. State-owned companies will use their monopoly power and weight to put downward pressure on commodity prices, and they will keep looking for other alternative sources for iron ore elsewhere outside Australia. So this is a real problem and a threat to us, and it's just so ironic, I think, Peter. You and I have had, and other Sky hosts have had different opinions about how the government has handled our relationship with China, but it just sort of makes me smile sometimes when Scott Morrison effectively and his colleagues declare war on China, but they're still happy to send our iron ore to bolster their own budget bottom line. It smacks a little bit of Pig Iron Bob, doesn't it? For those of your viewers that are old enough to remember what that means.
Be careful, Joel Fitzgibbon. I can still remember when the former Prime Minister from your side called them rat expletives, but it was happily also taking that resources revenue. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Joel Fitzgibbon, Campbell Newman, thank you for your time this evening.